We have a speaker from our own group, a neighboring group, and this week we've been honored in having somebody from our own group. This is the man's first talk. I think he's going to give a good talk, and you know, we had a meeting one day, and we said, who are we going to get for a speaker? And I said, oh, it's got to be somebody good. I said, I know, just the guy. Without any further ado, I want you all to welcome, give Charlie a big hand.
Ross had me wear this suit, can't get the best, and I think a little weight out of the funny farm. There was a time, you know, when I would need to allow me to carry the dishes. The rattle so bad, 4 cups of coffee. Even though I'm going through withdrawals prior to getting up here, I can still think straight. All the beautiful people here this morning will have to clean up my act. It's an honest program. We all know where we come from. God works in mysterious ways. Here I'm standing in the presence of a group of people that I walked out of the presence of a group of people 26 years ago. Chose drinking as a profession and as my friend. Never let me down. I used to brag about that. But once again, my higher power has chosen, in strange ways, for me to stand in the presence of such a beautiful group. I hope you'll bear with me today. I've had many blackouts. I may have one during this talk. My life is in 3 parts. The first part was my childhood, the good old days, we like to call it, social, getting acquainted with our drug and our fixes. Then the downhill part of it, the insane behavior, the desire to leave the world, find a better place. And then this program. I believe in God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Ghost. I'll make that clear. Your higher power is your business. I heard a man say last night, if you don't like God, put another O in it and make it a good program. That's what it is. I believe that God has got me here this morning to say to you people that this boy was born in Central City, Kentucky, Muhlenberg County, my father's home. The first son my father and mother had died before I was born. So you can understand that when Junior come along, why he was the apple of their eye. It hurts me sometimes to listen to young people talk about being tossed in the garbage can and their parents didn't want them. It hurts me, and I can understand and relate to those who were beaten as children by drunken parents. But I never had that. I had a loving home before home. I came to Michigan in 1929. And as those my age will remember, my father got a supervisor's job, and we thought we were really up on top of the mountain. But our country went down, and we lost a job, and the Depression hit. I know what it is to stand in the welfare line. I know what it is to stand there for many hours just for a jacket to go to school. I know what it is to have the embarrassment of people coming to your home to check and see how much food we had. Those were bad times. But you see, I wasn't unhappy because everybody was just like us. Everybody was poor. We didn't know we were poor. Today, I see our country getting in that condition again, thinking about Pearl Harbor tomorrow. I served in World War II. I remember the bad times, but I remember the happiness. I remember going to church. Those who remember back to the Depression days, you know, we used to go out to church and get donuts to the children, coffee and milk. I didn't have any denomination, just never had donuts and coffee. That's what I was that week. I believe that my mother and father raised me to the best of their ability. I don't think that when I came into the world, my father expected me to become an alcoholic. I didn't start out in the world to be standing in your presence here. I'm a grateful alcoholic, but I'm not grateful. I'm an alcoholic. if that makes sense to you. When I went into service in 1944, I couldn't wait to get into service in that monkey suit, join the United States Navy. I thought, boy, if I could just get that blue uniform on, the girls would just swarm all over me. I didn't realize it was almost 2 years before I got back to this country to put that suit on. And then the Japs was mad at me. They kept shooting at me. Young people, you know, today, we have forgotten unless we read about the tragedies that were suffered back then. And I think I grew through the pain of my youth, the happiness. I had a good father, died an alcoholic. It wasn't until I got into this program that I realized how much I hated my father for dying an alcoholic. I used to go to the cemetery and I'd kick his tombstone. I'd get on a crying binge and sit there and weep. The man I loved, the man I respected, the man I worshipped, died an alcoholic's death. Fell off a bar stool, dead of a heart attack. Alcoholic subrosis, too much alcohol to his heart. The whys that came into my mind. Why did God take my father? Why did my dad hate me and the other children, the world so much that he chose death over living? I heard a priest speak one time and he said, if anything ever came out of an alcoholic's death and helps one other human being to stay sober, they didn't die in vain. And I find comfort in that today. I don't have to go to the shrink anymore and sit there for hours. And after the money runs out, he says, you know, you got a drinking problem? I know I had a drinking problem. That's what I was doing then. I knew I had a drinking problem a long time before I went through withdrawals, before I had the blackouts, before I had the shakes, before I'd come home and my children would wait to see what I said before they'd speak to me. My wife never knew whether to kiss me when I come in or duck. I remember coming in one day and saying, honey, your sex symbol's home. Tripped over the door and fell flat on my face. There was times when I came in and I didn't want to make love. I didn't want her to put her arms around me. I had a climb under my shirt. Don't want no pressure. Alcoholics can't stand pressure. Honey, you want to go to bed? She said, wait a minute, I got to hang this up. If you want to argue about it, forget it. Oh, those insane days at work when I thought the plant manager had nothing to do but stand around and watch me. That son of a gun, there he is again, look at me. The man didn't even know I was alive. Going through those phases in life. Insane behavior, insane behavior. I don't know why alcoholics are such lonely people. Monday morning in the job, all of a sudden the doors are slamming, you're all by yourself. You hear people cussing you on the way out. Lonely people. We always smell like we never took a bath. Or we just crawl out of the septic tank. Can you imagine kissing a drunk when you think the wrong end's up? I went to work with my buddies one day and I said, either my wife grew a mustache or I kissed her on the wrong end of the spine. I couldn't get to work. I had a pint under the seat, pint in my locker room, pint on the job. Couldn't make it a half hour without a drink. Already drunk. Couldn't make it a half hour. My truck went from 16 miles in a gallon down to 3. My wife says, you're going to have to get a tune-up. I said, no, I got to have more money for gas this week. I owed the bootlegger. I owed my buddies. I owed the liquor stores. I used to change them repeatedly. If I went in, the guy put 2 packs of Cools out in a pint. He lost a customer. I never went back. I didn't want anyone to know that I had a drinking problem. If someone would have said to me, Charlie, you're drunk, I'd say, right on, baby. Right on. Heavy, but I'm hammered. You got a drinking problem. Right you are, right you are. The judge said to the drunk down there, you're down here for a drinking party. He said, whoopee, what's it start? AA, that's heavy. Alcoholism, that's heavy. That's a gut one. That's a gut one. Yeah, when I came in here and they said, you're an alcoholic. I remember my first meetings, I felt I was 2 feet above everybody else. 2 feet above everybody else. I had came down to pick your brains. I was going to learn how to drink intelligently. In the back of my mind was that old cliche that I'm going to return to the good old days, social drinking. And with those thoughts you get drunk. I listened to him at the table. One would say, I drank scotch. I said, you ought to be drunk. I couldn't stand scotch. Good burn, good whiskey. Somebody else said, I got tied up on nightfall. You are sick, sister. You're sick. Somebody else hung up on cough syrup. Canned heat. Yep. You all belong here. Not Charlie. Charlie came down, looking down from his pink cloud. I got a problem, but I can handle it. I can handle it. The only thing I ever done in my life is screw up every good thing I ever done. Every decent thing I ever got. I got a boy who went to prison. I got a practicing alcoholic right now. And I love it when he says, like father, like son. I love it. Cuts me to the quick. God has been so good to me that I can stand in your presence. I have been in these tables and these meetings and brought my friends with me that are no longer counted among the living. And I thought that I was excluded from that group. I thought I was going to live to be as old as Methuselah. I felt that this poison I was taking into my system would never affect my liver, but it did. I thought it would never affect my kidneys, but it did. I thought it would never affect my mind, but it did. I don't know how through that fog that I used to look through, driving home from work with one eye open, driving off the freeway, not aware of the people I could have killed, puking out the door, trying to get another drink, people blowing their horns and me giving them the finger, running over the curb. My wife would look out the window, and I had to have another drink just to get from the truck in the house. We don't realize, the longer we play with a snake, eventually we get there. There was a young lady one time in a carnival act. She had a huge python. She used to come out and it'd coil around her beautiful body. And at a set command, it would release her. One day when she gave that command, it didn't release and it killed her. This is what alcohol does to you and I. Oh, I know there's so many people out there today, they can't relate to you and I. My wife can't relate to me. She's never had a drinking problem. She had an alcoholic father, an alcoholic husband, an alcoholic son, an alcoholic father. She can't really relate. The only ones that can relate here this morning to what I'm saying are those that are afflicted with this disease. Those that have sit around the tables and said, well, I'm not an alcoholic. I only drink at night. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't drink till the sun goes down. I started out that way. I said I'd never drink at work. I said I'd never miss work because of drinking. When I get that bad, I'll quit. I lied. I said I'll never owe a bootlegger money. I lied. I got so bad at gambling at work trying to get money back. I'm not even a gambler. The guys do if they bought me a pint, they give them a paycheck. Oh, happy Charlie. Couldn't count the car, couldn't see the car. The sucker walked in the door. Whiskey breath. I love those cliches. How you doing, whiskey breath? Oh, happy-go-lucky Charlie. As a committeeman at work, my job is to represent people just like me. I went into labor one time drunker than the man they were putting in the street. The labor rep said, my God, Charlie was all right. What happened? My tolerance began to fall. I could go 3 days without a drink, have 2 drinks, and I was drunker than I was 3 days ago. It began to fall. I didn't understand what was taking over my mind. The thought of being an alcoholic, I went into total shock. Total shock, mentally. I went to the shrink. I said, geez, Doc, I don't know. My mind is slowing up on me. Everything I do, it sounds like I'm saying, oh, he said, no, your mind's going 100 miles an hour. Take another pill. Better living through chemistry. My wife said, no, it's wrong. Give me an anti-pill. And a few minutes, she said, I was going out tonight. I danced all the way to my cottage one time, beat my legs and sang the music. 200 miles. You wouldn't believe it. I was ready to try another drop when I got it. The next day, oh my God. Oh, I'll never do this again. God help me. Why? Oh, no. What I meant was, God, help me feel better and I'll just buy one more pint. Have you ever got sober and you began, your wife pour that out of your husband, your friend, or somebody? And I said, yeah, I poured out. I poured the bleach on the sink last month of my last drinking days. Then I drank. I had bottles everywhere. I'd been sober a month and a half. She saw about the one of the newspapers. I had bottles all over the place. I don't remember buying them. I would stop at 3 liquor stores on the way home. Don't ask me how or why. I had a blackout. With money I'd bump for somebody for gas, and I'd buy things on the credit. Who's going to pay cash? You need it for booze. You can charge gas and tell your wife later, I don't know when it happened, one of the kids did from. Live. Professional life. It's a real life. Lie to the boss, lie to the wife and kids, lie to our friends. But those tragic things lying to ourselves. Lying to ourselves. That's the bottom line. We're not really hurting that many people as much as we're hurting ourselves. Hurting ourselves. What a tragedy to see a beautiful human being blow their life away for a drink or for some other substance. What a beautiful tragedy to me to see a human being. You know, I love it today when I came here and saw everybody dressed. I own a suit. The boss asked me, you got a suit? And I said, sure, I got a suit. She made the last payment. I got a vest. It's back, I can't wait. I had a vest. When I probably would have had bought my clothes down on Skid Row. Those of you remember those pawn shops down there when I was a kid, they used to hang all the suits outside. They run $5 to $10. Tailor-made, fit anybody. One guy was in there buying a suit one day, the dogs used to run up down Michigan Avenue when they'd hike a leg around here on a suit. They had to put the suit on this man, and he smells nice, it smells me, I'll keep my pants. So long ago I had the privilege of going with Ross to give him open talk about the Salvation Army down in Detroit. And where did we go? But to my old paper route street, Brainerd and Cass. And right around the corner, my beautiful wife here, I went to school there. And as Ross was talking, I was looking out the window there, and I thought, you know, I feel like Virginia Slim. I've come a long way, baby. I've come a long way in life. When I look at the people today, have you ever really looked at yourself? If nobody else is around, you stand there nude, and you're looking in the mirror, and you say, you bastard, somebody ought to punch you out. You sicko. Why are you doing this? Why? Because we're sick people. The sick people trying to steal. We're not bad people. I never intentionally went out to beat anybody or to steal or rob from anybody, although I did. I once thought when I came in a program I never intentionally robbed anybody. That's a lie. I got paid for 8 hours work every day of my life. I drank it up. I cheated them. I lied to them. I conned. I steal. There wasn't anything I did. When I first came in the program, I thought the only problem I had, I just drank it. It was through the tables, sitting down and listening to people with sobriety, that I began to see the ugliness that was in the human being. This is the thing that I used to go out and I want somebody to punch me out. It's impossible to love somebody else if you don't love yourself. It's impossible to go out and have a positive attitude if your whole day is negative. I could break a shoelace and get drunk for 3 days. My attitude in the world stunk. I felt everybody in the world was sick. I put a wall of booze around me. I don't want you touching me, and I ain't going to touch you. Hands off. Don't be trying to get in my mind. I'm not trying to get in yours. I got very independent. I don't need nobody. If I want to kill myself, that's my business. I wasn't aware that my wife had a nervous breakdown. I wasn't aware of some of the problems my children had. They're 26 years old. I'm sober one day. I didn't even know they had a problem. I wasn't aware of anything in the universe except Charlie needed a fix. Charlie needed a fix. The monkey on my back was turning into a gorilla. And the bubbles had gone on. I mean, the higgles had gone on. All the bubbles. There was no more fun in drinking anymore. I wasn't the life of the party. I remember the time when my mother called my wife and she said, we're having a family get-together at Christmas. And I come from one of the family. But if Junior's drinking, don't drink. You know, I said, my God, my own mother don't love me. I got drunk for a week on that. My mother has turned against me. I loved it when she used to say, Junior, if I had your problems, I'd drink. I'd sweat. Hadn't had a drink, the poison is coming out of the system. The body is a beautiful thing. And it knows how. But you and I don't want to take care of it. I don't know about you. I joined bowling, and the first thing I knew, I had professional bowling shoes, a professional bowling ball, a hand strap. I went all the while. And I was carrying 130 pounds.